I'm Chef Nicole Gaffney with Santa Sweets, growers of the authentic grape tomato and of the UglyRipe heirloom tomato. Today I'm going to show you how to make a goat cheese and chive stuffed UglyRipe tomato. I absolutely love, love, love this dish, and I think you will too. So we have to start with, of course, our UglyRipe tomatoes. We want to give them a good rinse under water to make sure they're nice and clean. Okay, and then just pat them dry. And because we're going to be stuffing these tomatoes, we want to make sure that they lay flat and they're not wobbling around too much on our board. This guy looks pretty good, but this one, maybe not so much. So I'm just going to take a paring knife and cut the bottom off ever so slightly so that it lays flat. Perfect. Now with the same paring knife, I'm going to cut open the top nice and wide and try to get out a nice big piece of flesh, because we need somewhere to put our goat cheese after all. So I cut out a big piece, but I'm going to go and try and get even more out of there. Just like this. And use your fingers to kind of dig a bit of the flesh out. Perfect. So there's one, and we'll do the other. So nice and wide, and try and get deep, but you of course don't want to cut through the bottom. And then scoop out the insides. Now, one very important step that we're going to do next is make sure that we season the inside of our tomatoes really well. So you want to take a generous amount of salt. You actually want to use more here than you think is appropriate, because many, many times I've made these tomatoes and used what I thought was a good amount of salt and found out later that it wasn't really quite enough. So be very liberal with it. Then, of course, some freshly cracked pepper as well. And then just set those aside on your baking sheet. So to make the filling, it's really simple. Just going to use some fresh goat cheese and then some chives. I love chives. They're definitely one of my favorite herbs. So just take a bunch of them. Bunch them up like this, and then run your knife through them and mince them, nice and small. You can use pretty much any herb that you want in this recipe. You can use basil, you can use parsley, oregano. Any herb would really work great, but I love the nice oniony bite that the chives give. So, drop that in with our goat cheese. And once again, we need to make sure that the goat cheese is well seasoned. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and we just want to mash that together. It really helps if your goat cheese is softened. So if you want to take it out maybe a couple hours before you make this recipe, it'll mash together a lot better than if you just take your goat cheese right out of the refrigerator and try to make it. So it's pretty good and mashed together now. It doesn't have to be perfect. And take our tomato that's been hollowed out and stuff a good bit of goat cheese right in there. But we do want to leave a little bit of room in the top because we're going to make a toasted panko breadcrumb topping to go over to give a nice textural contrast. So you can actually press the goat cheese down, make sure it's really good and in there. And just like that. Pretty simple stuff. Put them back on the baking sheet, and then we're going to throw these into a 400-degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes just to kind of heat the goat cheese through, soften the tomatoes up a little bit. Okay, so to make the topping for our goat cheese stuffed UglyRipes, it's really, really easy. Just going to put some olive oil into a saute pan that's heating up. And then you're going to throw in some panko breadcrumbs. Everybody seems to love panko breadcrumbs these days, and for good reason. They're nice and crispy, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we're just putting in enough for 2 tomatoes. And these are going to start to toast up pretty quickly. As you can see, the bottom has already started to toast. So you want to keep working them around with your spatula to make sure that they toast evenly on all the different sides. So this is going to add a nice textural contrast to the creamy goat cheese and the juicy UglyRipe tomato. It's going to give us a nice crunch on top, which is really, really nice when you bite into it. So this is going to happen pretty quickly. I'm going to turn my heat down just a little bit so they don't burn. Great. That is just about what you're looking for. We'll let them get a little bit more toasted. And that's about it. So I'm just going to set these off to the side. And our tomatoes should be just about done in the oven. So we're going to go take them out and top them with the panko. Oh, they look beautiful. All right. I love using UglyRipe tomatoes because of the quality. They're always hand-picked and hand-processed, so they're never going through a conveyor belt. There's always somebody there to make sure that the tomatoes aren't bruised, that they look perfect, and that they're going to taste great. So, just going to take our panko topping. It's nice and brown. And spoon it over the top of each tomato, just like this. You can kind of let it cascade over the sides. It's no such thing as a little too much breadcrumb. Just like this. And then we'll get them on our plate. Just be very gentle because they do tend to soften up quite a bit in the oven. Very carefully put them on your plate. And then I'm going to top with a little bit of extra sea salt. And a little bit of fresh parsley just for color. And that's it. These are my goat cheese and chive stuffed UglyRipe tomatoes. I'm Chef Nicole Gaffney, and for more you can check out santasweets.com.